Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, second canto, chapter 6, entitled Purusha Sukta Confirmed, text number 20. Padaha trayaha bahihi cha asan aprajanam ye ashamaha antah trilokyaha tu aparaha grihamedhaha abrihat vrataha Padastrayo bahishchasan prajanam ya ashamaha antastrilokyastvaparo grihamedho brihabrataha Padastrayo bahishchasan prajanam ya ashamaha antastrilokyastvaparo grihamedho brihabrataha Padastrayo bahishchasan aprajanam ya ashamaha antastrilokyastvaparo grihamedho brihavrataha Padastrayo bahishchasan aprajanam ya ashamaha antastrilokyastvaparo grihamedho brihavrataha Padastrayo bahishchasan aprajanam ya ashamaha antastrilokyastvaparo
Grihamedho brihatvataha
grihamedho brihavrataha
Padastrayo bahishchasan aprayanamaya asramaha
aprajanam ya ashamaha
antastrilokyastvaparo
antastrilokyastvaparo
grihamedho brihadvrataha
grihamedho brihadvrataha
Padastrayo bahishchasan aprajanam ya
ashamaha
antastrilokyastvaparo
antastrilokyastvaparo
grihamedho brihadvrataha
grihamedho brihavrataha
Padastrayo Bahishchasan
Padastrayo Vihishasan
Aprajanamya Ashramaha
Aprajanamya Ashramaha
Antastrilokyastvaparo
Antastrilokyastvaparo
Griha Medho Brihadvrataha
Grihamedho Brihadvrataha
Padastrayo Bahishchasan
Padastrayo Vihishasan
Aprajanamya Ashramaha
Aprajanamya Ashramaha
Antastrilokyastvaparo
Antastrilokyastvaparo
Grihamedho Brihadvrataha
Grihamedho Brihadvrataha
Padastrayo Aprajanamya Ashramaha
Aprajanamya Ashramaha
Antastrilokyastvaparo
Antastrilokyastvaparo
Griha Medho Brihadvrataha
Grihamedho Brihadvrataha Astrayo Bahishasan
Aprajanamya Ashramaha
Aprajanamya Ashramaha
Antastrilokyastvaparo
Antastrilokyastvaparo
Griha Medho Brihadvrataha
Grihamedho Brihadvrataha Adahatrayaha. The cosmos of 3/4 of the Lord's energy. Bahihi, thus situated beyond. Cha, and for all. Asan, were. Aprajanam, of those who are not meant for rebirth. Yea, those. Ashramaha, status of life. Antaha, within. Trilokyaha, of the 3 worlds. 2, but. Aparaha, others. Grihamedhaha, attached to family life. Abrihat vrataha, without strictly following a vow of celibacy. Translation. The spiritual world, which consists of 3/4 of the Lord's energy, is situated beyond this material world, and it is especially meant for those who will never be reborn. Others who are attached to family life and who do not strictly follow celibacy vows must live within the 3 material worlds. Purport. The climax of the system of Varnashram Dharma or Sanatana Dharma is clearly expressed here in this particular verse of Srimad Bhagavatam. The highest benefit that can be awarded to a human being is to train him to be detached from sex life, particularly because it is only due to sex indulgence that the conditioned life of material existence continues birth after birth. Human civilization in which there is no control of sex life is a 4th-class civilization, because in such an atmosphere there is no liberation of the soul encaged in the material body. Birth, death, old age, and disease are related to the material body, and they have nothing to do with the spirit soul. But as long as the bodily attachment for sensual enjoyment is encouraged, the individual spirit soul is forced to continue the repetition of birth and death on account of the material body, which is compared to garments subjected to the law of deterioration. In order to award the highest benefit of human life, the Varnashram system trains the follower to adopt the vow of celibacy, beginning from the order of brahmachari. The brahmachari life is for students who are educated to follow strictly the vow of celibacy. Youngsters who have had no taste of sex life can easily follow the vow of celibacy, and once fixed in the principle of such a life, one can very easily continue to the highest perfectional stage, attaining the kingdom of the 3/4 energy of the Lord. It is already explained that in the cosmos of the 3/4 energy of the Lord, there is neither death nor fear, and one is full of the blissful life of happiness and knowledge. A householder attached to family life can easily give up such a life of sex indulgence if he has been trained in the principles of the life of a brahmachari. A householder is recommended to quit home at the end of 50 years. Pancha Shordram Bhanam Brajet, and live a life in the forest. Then, being fully detached from family affection, he may accept the order of renunciation as a sannyasi, fully engaged in the service of the Lord. Any form of religious good for the human being any form of religious principles in which the followers are trained to pursue the vow of celibacy is good for the human being, because only those who are trained in that way can end the miserable life of material existence. The principles of nirvana, as recommended by Lord Buddha, are also meant for ending the miserable life of material existence, and this process in the highest degree is recommended here in the Srimad Bhagavatam with clear perception of ideal perfection, although basically there is no difference between the process of Buddhists, Shankarites, and Vaishnavites. For promotion to the highest status of perfection, namely freedom from birth and death, anxiety, and fearfulness, not one of these processes allows the follower to break the vow of celibacy. The householders and persons who have deliberately broken the vow of celibacy cannot enter into the kingdom of deathlessness. The pious householders, or the fallen yogis, or the fallen transcendentalists can be promoted to the higher planets within the material world, 1/4 of the energy of the Lord, but they will fail to enter into the kingdom of deathlessness. Abrihar vratas are those who have broken the vow of celibacy. The vanaprasthas, or those retired from family life, and the sannyasis, or the renounced persons, cannot break the vow of celibacy if they want success in the process. The brahmacharis, vanaprasthas, and sannyasis do not intend to take rebirth, apraja, nor are they meant for secretly indulging in sex life. Such a fall down by the transcendentalist may be compensated by another chance for human life in good families of learned brahmanas, or of rich merchants for another term of elevation. But the best thing is to attain the highest perfection of deathlessness as soon as the human form of life is attained. Otherwise, the whole policy of human life will prove to be a total failure. Lord Chaitanya was very strict in advising his followers in this matter of celibacy. One of his personal attendants, Chota Haridasa, was severely punished by Lord Chaitanya because of his failure to observe the vow of celibacy. For a transcendentalist, therefore, who at all wants to be promoted to the kingdom beyond material miseries, it is worse than suicide to deliberately indulge in sex life, especially in the renounced order of life. Sex life in the renounced order of life is the most perverted form of religious life. And such a misguided person can only be saved if, by chance, he meets a pure devotee. So, some straightforward words here. The spiritual world is that place which are meant for people who are never to be reborn. Many times people have a question about this and they think, well, if I'm here now, what's to stop me from coming again? But again and again and again, Krishna guarantees never come back. Taktva deham punar janma naiti mam na eti. Certainly never. Naiti mam eti swarjuna. Maybe that wasn't it. He says, as when you give up this material body, then you will never take rebirth again. I think I got the two verses mixed up. One is mamupetya tukonteya, which means to a you will certainly go to him. He says it that way. And Krishna also says it the other way, that you never have to take birth again into this material world. Yeah, I think that's it. Naiti mam eti sarjuna. He never takes birth again, but he attains to me. So this is stated, and we can do this only when we have attained pure devotional service. So this is important. Many different types of spiritualists or transcendentalists or religionists are after some higher status beyond this material world, meant for sense gratification. And Prabhupada points that out in the purport that, the Buddhists, the Shankarites, and the Vaishnavites are all moving to something beyond this place. And to get there, every single one of those groups has to strictly follow the vow of celibacy. Not one of these processes allows the follower to break the vow of celibacy. So we're very fortunate in this movement that we can actually engage this propensity for sexual life in Krishna's service. But it must be done properly. So we have some material desires, which Prabhupada points out are mostly or more or less epitomized by this attraction for the opposite gender. And he says it like this: particularly because it is only due to sex indulgence that the conditioned life of material existence continues birth after birth. So this is more or less the backdrop of the material world. And as soon as the male and female unite, then there is a hard knot tied in the heart, which convinces one that he is his body, that his property is his possessions, that his wife is his possession, that his family are his possession, that his land is his possession, his wealth is his possession, when if actually he's been awarded all of these things, as well as his own very body and mind, by the material nature. Prakriti kriyamanani gunai sarvani sarvashaha. So that he's actually been awarded these things and they're not his. But this whole sex indulgence is pretty much based on this principle that I can do with this body what I like. And actually, that's a big political slogan that is going around all over the place. It's my body. I can do what I want with it. Who said? Who said it was your body? Did you make it? You created it? No, we were given it. It's a gift. It's been awarded by material nature. And this human form body is specifically meant for practice of the Varnashram system. And we can attain perfection in that when we follow those rules and regulations for the pleasure of Krishna. So according to the Varnashram system or Sanatan Dharma, we are meant to perform all these rules and regulations for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord. Sanksit here, Haritoshanam, that we're not necessarily interested to be celibate for our own aggrandizement, our own name and fame, our own prestige, our own what we can get a lot of wealth that way too. We can get a lot of power. We can get a lot of position. We're not meant to follow any of these rules and regulations for that purpose. That's stated also in the Bhagavatam, that we're not meant to cultivate sense gratification, by the practice of our religious process. Rather, we're meant to satisfy the Supreme Lord. So, Prabhupada mentions here that this body is like a garment and it deteriorates just like everything else in this material world. If you leave a car out for some time, and slowly, it's deteriorating. And I was hearing today that Prabhupada mentions that there's a lack of education, that it's actually very logical that the body is different from the soul. But our society is so off course that our so-called education is so faulty, we cannot even consider a very basic topic. So a child may think, hey, daddy, there's that bus, it's just driving alone. They think that the car is moving by itself. They don't know necessarily that there's a driver inside. It's just a large self-moving object or a plane in the sky. Is it a birdie? Right? But if he's to mature, then he learns. No, actually, there's always a driver in such mechanisms. So there's a person, he's controlling that machine. And that's pretty much how it works. So if we think that the body, right, is running without any driver, then what good is our education? If the child goes on his whole life and he still thinks that it's running by itself, it's pretty embarrassing, for his teachers and his countrymen who are supposed to be training him to become an intelligent, thoughtful person. Right? So similarly, we're in a sorry state in this Kali Yuga, because not only are we not being taught about the soul within the body, but we're being taught to aggravate our material desires. We're being taught to scratch the itch as violently as possible, as often as possible. That will be good for you and for everyone. So that's very unfortunate, because as explained in this verse, there's no way we can go to that three-fourths energy of the Lord if we break these strict rules. And as we were hearing yesterday from His Holiness Dhanavir Maharaj at the home program yesterday, he was stating there's Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smartanam, Kali, Pratilakshanam. There's these different categories that are meant to be followed by a person who's actually practicing brahmachari, which means that you shouldn't hear about sex life, about the affairs of man and woman. You shouldn't even hear about it. You shouldn't speak about it. You shouldn't think about it or remember it. You shouldn't dally or flirt with the opposite gender. You shouldn't have any private conversations, right? You shouldn't make any plans to do it, to meet with them, to correspond, to have a rendezvous, right? You shouldn't engage in that activity, right? So these are all some of these categories which are more on the subtle side. And this is all meant to be learned very nicely as soon as possible. As soon as possible. Don't wait. We didn't get it when we were kids. We were meant to get it when we were 5. and we didn't get it. So the idea is we have to try to train ourselves now. And the spiritual master, he's the expert in such practices. And one thing is true that even persons who are within the householder life who break those principles for that ashram, they also have some impediments on their spiritual journey to back to Godhead. But it's much worse in the name of celibacy or in the dress of a celibate, in the color of a celibate, to break those principles. Much worse. Prabhupada has actually spent a lot of time hitting that one on the head. The brahmacharis, vanaprasthas, and sannyasis do not intend to take rebirth, apraja, nor are they meant for secretly indulging in sex life. There is one quote that I saw recently, or that I was made aware of from Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, was that what stops, this is a paraphrase, what stops, the full-time devotees who may even be living in the temple from actually going the distance and developing pure love for Krishna? Secret bad habits. Secret bad habits. Right? Secret bad habits. And actually, we understand the acharyas. What do? They have no secrets. And when you have no secrets, you're forced to come to terms with your bad habits. No secrets means they always know where I am. They always know who I am. Right? They always know who I am. They always know where I am. They always know what I should do. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. They always know, all these things. That way, as soon as I have some bad habit that is lingering on, I have no secrets. So then it has to be kicked out. I'm forced to come to terms with my bad habits. So secret bad habits, this is really a major thing, right? Brahmachari, he's meant to be a menial servant. And I was just hearing, Prabhupada was describing in his purport to chapter 4, text 34. Does anybody know that verse? Tad vini pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshinaha. Right? Prabhupada was speaking with one doctor in South Africa. I think his name was Dr. Cox or something. And he was a type of a religious professor at one of the universities. And he was saying, all these Hindus are here in South Africa, but they're losing touch with their culture. They don't have any idea. And he was himself a little humble. He was saying, me too. I don't know what is all this. And Prabhupada was describing, what is it? Simply requires authoritative discussion. Then you can understand. Authoritative discussion. Then Prabhupada describes the process of understanding is chapter 4, text 34. You can understand when you actually submit yourself to a bona fide spiritual master who can explain to you. And you're meant to render service and make submissive inquiries. And you're meant to get an understanding from him. That's your prerogative or your duty as a disciple. You're meant to get a clear understanding. In addition to submissive service, you're meant to get a clear understanding from the spiritual master, which is your duty, your prerogative, your responsibility. Right? So Prabhupada was describing that you can actually understand when you approach a spiritual master. The point I was trying to make, I'll have to refresh my memory by looking at this real quick. So we're meant to be a menial servant. Prabhupada uses that phrase. He says, from the bona fide spiritual master, he also clarifies, what is a bona fide spiritual master? Bona fide means somebody who comes into disciplic succession, and he himself is perfectly practicing surrender to his guru. Himself. That means we cannot properly impart knowledge to anyone or even practice spiritual life properly unless we actually surrendered and have a real relationship with a bona fide spiritual master who personally instructs us and is caring for us on the spiritual path. That's deep. And Prabhupada is making himself available for everybody. But Prabhupada's instruction is also to take bona fide initiation, diksha, from an initiating spiritual master in the line. So at a certain stage, it comes to my point where I take a bona fide initiation in the disciplic succession as a service to Srila Prabhupada, which he has asked me to do. Right? So he says you need full surrender to receive knowledge. Full surrender. And you should serve as a menial servant without false prestige. False prestige means I think I'm strong. I think I can do anything. I think I can breathe without Krishna, without Guru's mercy. Actually, my breathing is like the bellows of a blacksmith, and my ears are like holes for the snakes, and my eyes are like the eyes on a peacock feather, right? I'm actually useless. This machine is actually completely useless if it's not engaged in the service of the Lord. And it can't even move without the Lord's grace. Without his personal will and sanction, I cannot actually perform anything. So false prestige means I think I'm the doer of activities. Kartaham iti manyate. I'm thinking I'm the doer. That means pride. So when we try really hard for something which is not recommended by the acharyas, there's only one natural thing that happens: pride. We get puffed up because we think we're doing it. But if we always take submissive instruction from the guru, from the parampara, then we always maintain our identity in reality as a menial servant. Servant of the servant of the servant of the servant. All the super elevated positions in the spiritual world are already taken. We're insignificant. We're just part of the team. And that's our pride. We're proud to be part of the team, not proud of whatever Krishna lets us do for him. That glory goes to Krishna because he's making so many wonderful arrangements for me to do service and to bring glory to him, but he's actually facilitating those things. So what glory do I have to claim for myself? No, I'm proud to be a disciple of the disciplic succession. I'm proud to be a member of this community. I'm proud to be a member of this Krishna consciousness movement, this ISKCON movement. I'm proud to be a member of RVC Temple. I'm proud to be a chanter of the holy name, who's so merciful he can save a fallen soul like me. This is real pride. False prestige is the opposite. So we're meant to be a humble servant of the spiritual master without any false prestige. Then we can understand all this science. So we're meant to learn that as soon as possible. And if we haven't learned it yet, we have to start. Right? And part of that system is to practice this celibacy. Srila Prabhupada and the Acharyas have asked, please refrain from illicit sexual connections. And it's gross and it's subtle. And we can always do better. We can always do better. And the Acharyas think, I'm still engaged in sex life. I'm rotten. And I'm thinking, I am amazing. I'm liberated. I'm free from attraction. We have to be very careful. Who taught us that? Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was very careful with himself and his dependents and those who were looking for him for guidance. He was very careful We have to be careful because we are contaminated and we didn't get trained from a young age. We got trained opposite training. So we have to take shelter of the association of devotees, and we have to learn to control our meditations, direct them in the service of the Lord. Then we won't be false pretenders. We don't need any more of that. There's plenty around. Let our movement be based on real principles of our ashram system. Let us strive for upholding the real teachings that we want to follow, given in the Shastras, given by Guru, given by Sadhu. We can have that determination. Thank you so much, devotees. Please forgive me. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. All glories to the Srimad devotees.